Hello and welcome to the 3-time award-winning Tough Girl podcast, which is all about motivating and inspiring you while increasing the amount of female role models in the media. I'm your host, Sarah Williams. If you love adventure, challenge and hearing from women who share their stories and provide top tips and advice to help you take on your own personal challenges, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. New episodes go live every Tuesday at 7 a.m. UK time, with bonus episodes happening on a Thursday. You can support the Tough Girl mission by signing up as a patron by visiting Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast. Keep listening until the very end as I share more information about what's going on with me, with Tough Girl challenges, give shout outs and recommend other Tough Girl podcast episodes. More information can be found at toughgirlchallenges.com.
I'm Nicola Hardy. I'm from Sheffield originally, in South Yorkshire, and I now live in Cockermouth in Cumbria. I am a peak bagger at heart, a peak bagger and a long distance walker. I don't dabble in water sports. I'm a dry land kind of a girl. So yeah, my go-to sports are hiking and then also a bit of trail running in general. I've recently been asked to write a peak bagging related guidebook. So that's basically tying in one of my main passions, which is hill walking, with also my project management background, as I used to be an IT project manager. And I think one of the great things about guidebook writing is that you need to run it as a bit of a major project, but it also ties in with my passion, which is hill walking and selling the outdoors to people as a great hobby and things to do.
So this is not the first time that we've spoken to you. Regular listeners of the podcast will know that, well, they might not know the exact year we spoke to you, but we first spoke with you on March 31st, 2022, where you came on the Tough Girl podcast and shared more about climbing all 282 of Scotland's Munros and walking. In 2020, you walked 330 kilometres from your home in Sheffield to your new home in Cockermouth. So we discussed a whole load of things on that episode, from, getting into the outdoors, being inspired by your parents, what it was like growing up in Sheffield, hiking Mount Kilimanjaro, meeting your partner, talking about planning routes, but, obviously, and wanting to spend more time in the outdoors, but being held back by work commitments, how you made a couple of big changes in your life, from selling your house to quitting your job to make a full-time living from adventure, and how that worked out for you. And then you share, some more information about working with different brands. We also talk about like public transport and getting around the Lake District. To be fair, it is a very detailed episode, well worth going back to and listening. But we're going to sort of jump straight into almost what you've been doing since 2022, because I know that you've been on a number of different adventures, from being in Switzerland to doing your first solo trek abroad, as well as walking many of the local trails. So I suppose my question is going to start off as, how are things going? Like, what is it like? You're obviously super active, you're writing guidebooks, are you living is this the life that you dreamed about that you're now living?
I don't think I ever dreamed about this life. I feel like this life somehow chose me or something, because I don't ever recall making a conscious choice that this is what I was going to do. I just started doing things that filled me with joy and then wanted to talk about it. And then people have given me the opportunity to write about it and speak about it. And yeah, I'm living the dream as a result, but it wasn't my dream. It was kind of like, I'm living the dream, but I don't think I ever dreamt it for myself. But yeah, I kind of fill my time with as much adventure as possible, but whilst also trying to keep the money coming in. Obviously, got to still pay the bills and put something away for a pension and all that boring stuff. So yeah, it's been trying to find a balance for me with adventuring as much as I can, with bringing in some money as well. And I think I mentioned this on the podcast last time. I work a 2-day-a-week flexible office job as well, which to me I kind of describe as flipping the standard working week on its head and trying to work for 2 days and adventure for 5, or do adventurous work projects as well, like yourself. So yeah, it's kind of like being able to flip the standard working week upside down and have 2 days at the desk and 5 days adventuring if possible. So I've done quite a few sort of more local trails, like Hadrian's Wall, Dales Highway in winter, something called the Ring of Fire in the Galloway Hills, which is a lot of pathless walking. I've continued on the public transport linking routes. So I did Cumbria Coastal Way, which is my local sort of coastal trail, in a stage by stage approach. So linking each of the stages separately using the train and bus network we've got around the coast in Cumbria. So that enabled me to work a bit during the week and then adventure over the long weekends, linking them all up and sort of hiking the coast, but as like a jigsaw using public transport. So not necessarily hiking it in order either, just jumping up and down the coast and hiking the next stage that suited me best. South Downs Way, so like other national trails that you can sort of get to and hike over a long weekend. And also having multiple trails in mind. I don't know if you do this, but multiple trails in mind at any one time, and then thinking, right, I've got 5 days available. Which one am I going to do? Where's the weather best? So I might start by thinking, I could do Skye Trail on the Isle of Skye in Scotland, or I could do the Cleveland Way in that window, or I could do the South Downs Way and just work my way down the country chasing the weather. So yeah, stuff like that to fit in really with the schedule.
I'll share this with you and everyone listening. And like normally, if I share this with people, everyone, I'd be thinking, oh my God, they're going to think I'm such a loser. But every now I share it with you and the listeners, they'll be like, no, that's very Sarah. And actually, I do the same. So I not only have like a notes app where I have like a specific like folder for future adventures. Whenever I come across something, I create like a separate folder. So whether it's like the GR20 or the GR10, and then I add the links in, or any like bits of like information, like because I sometimes go down the rabbit hole of like, well, how do I get there? And I use like a website, Rome to Rio. What's the cheapest method, or what's the fastest, or going through it all. Then the other thing I do is I have a list of like all the trails which are like 2 weeks, or like the 5 days, the 10 days, the 2 weeks. So a massive list of them. And then I have another spreadsheet where it's based on the best time of year to go. So I can look at a spreadsheet. So if I'm like, it's like, I don't know, like April, and I'm like, okay, I've got 2 weeks in April, where should I go? I can then have a look on my spreadsheet and be like, okay, April, best time of year is to walk, bam, bam, bam. These are my options, right? And then I've already researched it. And my research is basically, how do I get to the start? How do I get away from the finish? How many days? What's the distance? Where are the resupply points? That's pretty much what I do. But I want to come to you, and I think everyone will appreciate that. But the public transport, I think, is really interesting. So I drive, but I'd say I'm almost maybe not the most confident driver. Like I'm very confident, like driving around where, like my local area, which I know really, really well. But when I have to go further afield, like I find that quite a bit sort of stressful. So I actually prefer it when other people drive me and I'm like the passenger princess, but it doesn't happen too often. I did the Snowdonia Slate Trail recently, and actually I'd finished the walk and I didn't really want to get my parents to come and drive out to collect me. It was just sort of too far. So I thought, it's all right, I'll head home. So I ended up getting a bus to Bangor, then the train from Bangor to Chester, and then another train in and stuff. And it was like 34 or 37 pounds via public transport. But actually it was like, oh, this is actually really efficient. I was quite surprised. Obviously everything did go right for me. But when it comes to public transport for you for getting around, is this because you don't drive, or you don't have a car, or you just like public transport your thing?
No, I do drive. I do actually drive. And there's a lot that you really can't get to by public transport. So like one of the trails I did a couple of years ago in the very far north of Scotland, there is no public transport up there at all in that Sutherland region. They used to have things like post buses where you could literally just get a lift with like the postie, but that's almost eradicated now. So no, I do drive, but I do find it introduces stress to a adventure for me, worrying about either leaving my car somewhere or for a long period of time, or whether I'm going to get parked at all. So I get like mad parking anxiety, which introduces like negative thinking into the whole adventure process. And I want to go into an adventure feeling like the burdens of the week have lifted and I'm about to start something really exciting. And actually I end up like fixated on what if I can't get parked, or what if my car gets towed when I come back a week later, or those kind of sort of negative thoughts. So I find public transport kind of takes a lot of that a way for me. I've got less anxiety when it comes to public transport than I have to using my own car.
So let's talk about your book then in detail. So tell us about the book. So Peak Bagging Munros. Now I know you've walked a lot of Munros, but so quickly, I suppose, what are Munros? Tell us about the book, how it came about. And then, this is like 4 questions. What I'm meant to be a good interviewer. I'm asking you I've got like a list of like 5 questions coming up. But yeah, what are Munros? Tell us about the book and how it came about. And then I've got a few more questions after that.
Brill, that's fine. So over 130 years ago, there was a mountaineer called Sir Hugh Munro, and he was the first one to publish the list of Munro mountains, as you can tell, because he's named him after himself. So he inspired the hobby Munro bagging, which basically means that you go around the Scottish Highlands, hiking mountains, but also you've got this nerdy compulsion to maintain a tick list and record your progress. So as you go, so there's 282 mountains of those. They have to meet a certain height criteria. So they basically end up being the biggest mountains that are separate from other mountains. So they've got enough sort of prominence between each one to make them a worthy hike in their own right. And they're all over the Scottish Highlands. The most southerly is Ben Lomond, which is in the Loch Lomond and the Trossachs area. And then you've got the westerly ones are sort of on the islands. So you've got Munros on Mull, you've got Munros on Skye. As far north, right into the Sutherland area. So you've got Ben Hope up there as the most northerly. And then over to the east side, you've got Mount Keane, Mayar and Dreesh, that are sort of southeastern Cairngorms area. So I've put together 64 routes which are designed to link up all of these iconic mountains. So it's designed that somebody could pick it up and sort of tick the way off through the list, completing them at their own pace. For some people, and for most people, it would be over a number of many years. I think the average is sort of just over 20 years. So for some, it's quite a sort of a lifetime achievement. But there are people who do them in months, and then the biggest athletes will do them in a mere few weeks. The record sits at somewhere around a month. So I've tried to put together like a group of efficient routes, but in such a way that every route is sort of beautiful and fantastic walk in its own right. But it's also looked at it from a strategic perspective of thinking you kind of want to link those two Munros together due to the proximity to each other, or proximity to the road or the nearest car park or public transport. But there's a lot of books in this market. It's quite a saturated market. There are multiple other Munro bagging guidebooks out there. So when Vertebrate Publishing approached me to write this book, I kind of only wanted to take the commission if I felt like I could add something to the market that was missing already. So some of the things in the book, which are like the key features, is the layout. So I basically split the routes into 10 what I call Highland hubs. So they're sort of towns and villages in the Highlands that include places people will have heard of before: Glencoe, Fort William, Pitlochry, places like that. And the idea is that the reader would base themselves in a hub for a long weekend or a lengthier stay, anywhere up to 2 weeks, and springboard to each of the Munro routes from the hub, returning to access all the local facilities which are there, so shops, pubs, cafes, but then also offering options as to the budget option of staying in recommended campsites, the next step up, staying in hostels, and then also Airbnbs and sort of hotels and places like that. So that's one of the main sort of layout features, which is different from other books out there. I really wanted to have some big maps in there because I think with every adventure to me starts by looking at a map, putting myself in that map and sort of imagining how the landscape is going to come to life. So I really want good maps in there. And then I also wanted to put some grading information in there. So that's me using my experience in the Munros to sort of say, if you're looking to hike them from sort of shortest in length to longest in length, I can provide that distance information. I've provided an assessment of the terrain and also an assessment of the navigational challenge. But I've created a matrix in order to present that. So I've kind of scored each walk based on its ease in terms of distance, navigation and terrain, so that people can look at that and they can look at tables where they're ordered sort of in terms of from the easiest to the hardest in terms of distance, terrain and navigation, and pick the best walk for them that's going to suit the weather and everything and the time that they've got available, for example. So on a particularly wet period, I might be able to recommend one with grassier terrain that's, I mean, all Munros have got a certain level of steepness to them, but the least steep, and not anything that involves, for example, more complex things like river crossings that you would want to avoid and only do in the driest of conditions. I've thrown in there elevation profiles, there's public transport recommendations and parking details. There's downloadable GPX files with every copy as well. There's a suggestion of timings. So there's this category of a walker, a trekker, a fast packer and a runner. So I've got estimated timings for all of those. So once you kind of work out and do one route, you see, oh, I think I'm more of a trekker sort of speed. You can sort of look at the next route and get a really good estimated time that you think you're going to complete the route in. And then I've also thrown in some rest day suggestions. So if I'm suggesting people go and base themselves in one of these hubs, I'm going to assume they might throw in some days there where they're not hiking Munros in the way that I do necessarily, which is day after day and completely relentless. People are going to want some rest day suggestions, like how to enjoy the locks, sort of where you can go sort of stand-up paddleboarding and kayaking and things like that. And then also some more like things of historic interest and whatnot, castles, days out at castles and things like that. So I've tried to just pack in as much as I possibly can into the book, loads of photos in there as well. And for a lot of my research walks that I did, I was really quite blessed with some great weather conditions. So there's really, really some cracking photos in there that I've collected over the years as well. So in a nutshell, that's what the book has got in it.
This is insane in the best way. There is like the amount of information that you have provided is just unbelievable. From even like how to pronounce the names of the mountains, which I find brilliant, but also what they mean, escape routes, parking, refreshments, public transport options, the distances, the ascent, whether you're a trekker or a trail runner. How did this not take you like 10 years to do? Like just the gathering. I mean, I know you work in like project management and you must be very organized and very efficient, but this is a massive project, a massive, massive, massive undertaking. In terms of just, I suppose, planning and writing a guidebook of this caliber, where did you start? How did you start? Like, I'm just in awe.
I wasn't actually sure where to start. It was kind of like I start in my comfort zone, basically, which is maps and spreadsheets. That's where I'm happiest. So keep it simple, look at a map and see where the possible routes are, and then build the spreadsheets slowly. So I had a spreadsheet that was literally every route. I had a spreadsheet that was every Munro, and then all the details about each Munro, such as the pronunciations, the heights, etc. And then that just built and built and built. So you imagine every page of the guidebook has also got a sort of a column on a spreadsheet with all of that pre-collected information, as much as I could possibly do as a desktop exercise before I actually walked anything. By walking anything, I mean walking them again, because I've already a Munroist. So I'd already got all the Munros under my belt prior to starting this. So I'd already got some experience in the Munros. The first bit was like a winter, was timed quite well because I kind of took on this project in sort of November, December time. So I had a full winter while the Munros were not unwalkable, but a lot of the time they're covered in snow and ice in the winter, and it's a completely different beast. And ultimately, this is a summer hill walking guidebook. So I had the winter to kind of do all my desktop planning. Involved reading a lot of books, a lot of other books, a lot of blogs, poring over maps, and then just building this spreadsheet to the point where I came to execution. I already had like all of my routes planned. And that's not that I didn't change anything on the fly, because I did as I went. Sometimes I got there and I decided, oh, I'm really not sort of comfortable with approaching from this angle, or I can see a line there by eye that is clearly better than the one I've planned. So I'll move over to that kind of thing. And then it's just the challenge of writing whilst walking. Yeah, while you actually do, like, you get sort of like distracted by the views and everything else that's going on, that you've got to remember to sort of stop every time you get to a gate and sort of write the notes up, and you're sort of counting things like gates and stiles and sort of stream crossings and things like that as you go. And so you've got to kind of like not get lost in the moment of enjoying it, and remember that you are actually I sort of saw it as like doing a little public service, if you know what I mean, like collecting all this information so that other people can benefit from it later. And I kind of just did that onto it. I've tried a couple of things. I kind of tried typing it as I went and also dictating it, because I thought maybe that might be easier if I just talk to myself basically up the mountain. But that's harder when you've got things like wind and weather that are kind of getting in the way of that, because I found my dictations were sometimes partly inaudible because of the wind and things. So yeah, it's quite challenging, like working in that sort of high level mountain environment. And then when I got to the bottom of the mountain, it was a case of squirreling away in either a cafe or a pub or a campsite, sort of lounge area with my laptop, editing all the photos, naming all the photos while it was all fresh in my mind, because I know what I've looked at in the moment. But then if you were to ask me in sort of 5 days' time, what's that mountain name that you took a photo of, it's amazing how these things just slip out of your head. So yeah, naming things while it's all fresh, writing up my notes and kind of getting them to a point where they were like 80% sort of polished. And then towards the end, I kind of got to the autumn, had hiked all the walks that I needed to do, and then spent sort of 3 months at the other end getting these walks from sort of 80% complete to 100% complete, fact checking everything, like double and triple checking all the facts. And then is the point where you sort of hand it over to the editor, and the editor goes through it with a fine tooth comb and kind of asks you a few questions based on what you've done. And I actually really enjoyed the editing process as well. So getting each route back with the questions on it, sort of going in to detail and kind of answering the questions and making it the best it can possibly be. I worked with a really good editor, Helen, at Vertebrate. She was fantastic to work with. And together we just produced this beast that then came back to me on A3 paper printed, and I could barely hold it up. It was that much work. And you don't realise that when you sort of handed in the routes, you're doing them one at a time. So for me, I just handed in sort of 64 routes one at a time. I didn't contemplate what it would feel like to have the whole thing back. And now I've got a copy of the book. A couple of weeks ago, I got that through, and I just I can't believe the sheer weight of it, the weight of all the work. But then that is what it feels like. It's a year's worth of, just over a year's worth of hard graft really that went into it.
One of the things that I always think is interesting, and you hear it quite often, is when, people always tell you to like follow your passion or, turn your passion into a job, and then it never feels like work. That feels like a hell of a lot of work. And I'm just wondering, taking all of these very, very detailed notes, figuring all this stuff out, writing this incredible guidebook. Did this take away, I suppose, any of the enjoyment that you got from being out in the outdoors? Or was it giving you more purpose when you were in the outdoors? Because you always use the words like doing a public service for people. So I'm just wondering how you managed to make sure that you didn't lose the joys for spending time in Scotland and climbing the Munros.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. But one of the way in which I first hiked the Munros back in 2019 was in a fast challenge type environment. So I'd already hiked the 282 Munros in 6 months, and in a particularly bad summer as well. So I would say at least 50% of those hikes were done in the Clag, where I couldn't see anything. I did that with my boyfriend James, so it was us two together. We were under eating. We were trying to do it as frugally as possible. So we were eating the same kind of like, wrap with Nutella a bit of
Tuna,
Nutella spread
peanuts.
on it. And do you know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
kind of sort of really sort of poor, cheap diet that we were on, and kind of frugally trying to sort of get ourselves around all of the Scottish Munros. And we achieved it, but we kind of, the price we paid was we went up a lot of Munros and never saw a thing. So we might as well have just been on a step machine in a gym, but wet through and miserable kind of thing. It was the sense of achievement and the sort of fitness side of things were the main things that kept us going. And then those odd times when the weather was really good, we were absolutely in our element and really, really appreciated those times, because they felt like the highest possible moments were sort of juxtaposed against those really, really low moments. So we were on like a proper roller coaster for that journey. This time, the book, I don't know if I've mentioned this, I don't think I have so far. It's actually volume 1 of 2. So it's actually, despite the weight of it, it's actually the first 141 of the 282 Munros. So they're the southernmost Munros. So everything pretty much below the start of the Great Glen is included in this first volume. I basically saw it as that I'd got the same 6 month summer that I'd had in 2019. I've got the opportunity to do it again, but for half of them. So for me, in a weird way, I was like, oh, I've got more time than I had the last time I did this to do only half of them. So I actually did weirdly sort of slow down in comparison to how I was last time. I also had more flexibility to go out when the weather was good in comparison to last time when we were just sort of marching through the bad weather. So my experience this time round, I kind of fell in love with Scotland more so because I was able to appreciate it more, and I was researching things more. And so I was kind of understanding a bit more about the history, the people, the communities, and then also the geology as well. And so I don't know, I felt like in a weird way for this time, even though it still feels perhaps to the average person that it was quite frantic and hectic and still a lot to do in a summer, I've, in my own way, felt like I'd slowed down based on where I was in 2019. And I invited a fair few friends up to join me for weekends here and there. I still did the majority on my own, but I had quite a few friends come up to join me as and when they were free. And so quite a lot of it was quite sociable as well. And although conversations were sort of a bit stop-start, because I still had to stop and sort of take the sort of directions down and stop and take photos and things like that, which they had to sort of be a bit patient with me on. But I did actually quite enjoy socialising in the mountains as well. And I've got lots of memories of us sort of laid on a summit with a pair of binoculars looking at wildlife from one mountain to the next, which I don't have from when I hiked them in 2019. So I've kind of got more of an appreciation perhaps this time round. But there's no doubt about it, mixing your passion with your work does introduce some element of stress into what used to be a pure something you do purely for the love and the passion of it. But I think I just about teetered on the boundary there between sort of taking it too far and not.
Like, who do you think the book is sort of aimed at?
So I think there is a certain section of the population that's already quite Munro obsessed. So there'll be the people who are in the small niche who've already fallen in love with Munro bagging. They might already have hiked the Munros, or they might be partway through. They love the Munro hiking and they love the list ticking in equal measure. They're probably a member of all the Facebook Munro bagging groups, and they've probably already got a collection of Munro guidebooks as well, but they want to know everything there is to know about the Munros. So that's probably a very small subsection of people who will buy my book to add to their collection. And then you've got sort of just general Scotland lovers. So there's a sort of hill walkers who might never see themselves actually walking all the Munros, but they're very outdoors. They love Scotland, they love walking. And so it'll be great to give them ideas for sort of weekends away, holidays in the Highlands, that sort of thing. There'll be the people who sort of started hiking the Munros who already have perhaps got one guidebook, but are then realising that it doesn't quite gel with them. So that happened to me when I first started bagging the Munros. I had a guidebook, but then it was kind of like I wanted to walk a bit further and link different Munros, and I was looking at that as a starter for 10, but then I was looking at maps and sort of designing my own routes, or Googling to find other options. So what I think people are looking for is kind of choice, as in might not always want to do something the way that one guidebook recommends. So you're just looking for a bit more variety. So, for example, a lot of the guidebooks that are out there now will only talk about the jagged Grade 2 scrambling ridge in Glencoe, Anakeegak, opposite Bidian Nambian. That is something that a lot of hikers might find intimidating. They've never scrambled up to Grade 2 before. And so I've introduced routes which are hiking each of the bookend Munros on that really exposed ridge, an option for hiking those separately, so hiking them differently. And so they're just looking for a bit of diversity, and I think the book will suggest some routes there that might not have been considered before. And I think it also kind of works well if people are into peak bagging already. They may have already completed the Wainwrights or the Nuttalls, these other sort of classifications of mountain in England and Wales, but they're looking for the next big challenge. And that's where I was when I started Munro bagging. So I'd already completed the Wainwrights, the 214 Wainwrights of the Lake District, and I was looking to sort of level up to the next challenge. And the Munros are definitely sort of higher, gnarlier, more remote than the Wainwrights. But the people who enjoyed those sort of big Wainwrights or the edges, and they're looking to sort of step up, this Munro sort of challenge would be really good for them. Vertebrate also has a Wainwright guidebook already, which this one kind of sits in a series with. So they've got two different authors, but to all intents and purposes on a bookshelf, they look very similar. So if there are sort of listeners out there who already have the Peat Bagging Wainwright's book by Vertebrate Publishing, it'll be in a very similar sort of presentation style, the Munro book as a follow-on.
Honestly, massive congratulations on getting the book written and published with all the photos. Like, a huge amount of effort and a huge amount of work which has gone into it. So I'll be making sure that I share all the links to the books so that people can go and support it and read it and be inspired and head up to Scotland and get bagging those Munros. But it's not just Scotland that you've been doing adventures in. You also headed out to do an incredible trail in Switzerland. Do you want to share more about Switzerland, the trail that was selected, the reasons why, and more about that adventure?
Yeah, I was looking for a sort of a long distance-ish adventure. So over something that would fit in about the period of a month. And I came across the Alpine Passage Trail back in 2019 when I walked 2 individual stages as a bit of a taster on a holiday that I was doing in Switzerland. And I always kept in mind that they were the 2 days of that holiday which were the most amazing to me. Like, I loved the scenery, I loved the experience of hiking those stages, but at the time I only had time to do 2 very small stages. And I always thought one day I want to come back and do the whole thing and see if the whole thing is sort of all killer no filler kind of vibes that it really felt like it was going to be. So it's like this epic 700 kilometre trail across Switzerland from east to west. So it starts in St. Moritz at the High Alpine Ski Resort and then goes right the way through to St. Gingolf, which is on the shore of Lake Geneva, right on the Switzerland-France border. And so it goes all the way across sort of the southern Alps of Switzerland. And I went back and did it in 2022, I think it was, or 2023, flying into Zurich and out of Geneva with my partner, James. And it was an absolutely incredible trail. It genuinely was sort of at least one high pass per day. So for people who love sort of peat bagging, but then also a bit of long distance walking, it's absolutely perfect for that, because you kind of walk around 1,000 meters of ascent, vertical ascent a day, coupled with a fairly sort of long distance, so sort of 25 to 35 kilometers a day as well. We were able to do a mixture of staying in a few accommodations and huts, but also quite a bit of wild camping as well. I'd say we probably wild camped more than anything else on that trip. You just get that absolutely epic alpine scenery every single day. There were plenty of places to sort of resupply as well. You go through, it's so much in terms of like the people that you meet. You go through German speaking parts of Switzerland, Italian speaking parts of Switzerland, and you do actually enter Italy for a short time, 2 days, and then also French speaking Switzerland as well. So you never know whether or not you're saying grüezi, hello, buongiorno. You're kind of all over the place linguistically, knowing sort of who you're going to bump into along the trail. I think most people hike it in somewhere between sort of 38 to 43 stages. We did it fairly on the fast side in about 30 or 31 stages, but that's really made possible with the fact that you can wild camp it quite well. But yeah, needed to be nice and sort of mountain fit for the trail in order to enjoy it. But yeah, we really had sort of just a fantastic time there. And I'd highly recommend it to anybody, lesser known sort of European trail.
So when I think Switzerland, so I spent 6 months working over in Switzerland in Verbier, working as a chalet host.
Oh, brill.
One of the things that Switzerland is just so expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So do you know how much this costs you to do? Like food resupply, like I dread to even think about how much was this as expensive as I'm imagining it to be, or was it not?
I don't think it was. We spent, I think it was 20 nights out of 31 in the tent while camping. So it's quite a bulk of it was sort of cost-free in that regard. We resupplied in just the local sort of supermarkets. And while things are definitely more expensive in the supermarkets than they are here, you did find those, if you look around, like looking for like the cheaper options, it is sort of possible to do it on some semblance of a budget. And then the huts were definitely cheaper than the couple of hotels that we needed. The only time we really needed a hotel was when absolutely terrible weather just came out of nowhere. So we had like a blizzard come in, like a properly wintry, where we couldn't literally continue because the sort of snow line was like getting up to sort of knee level. And we're there in our sort of innovate trail runners kind of thing, like trying to like
little short.
We're like, I'm not really dressed for this. Obviously we were like in shorts, and then we had like a pair of waterproof trousers and a pair of like base layers to kind of sleep in. And even with everything on, it was too dangerous to continue, really. So that's a lesson in knowing when to turn around and replan. So we definitely had that there, and we just sort of relocated sort of into the valley. But then the wild camping options sort of dried up, and we ended up staying in a couple of hotels there. But that's why you have like your emergency sort of fund behind you to try and, so to be able to pay for things like that when things go wrong. But all in all, I can't remember now. It was a good few years ago how much we spent, but it definitely was less than I was sort of expecting. So that there are ways to sort of have a fairly frugal adventure in Switzerland.
I love the fact that I didn't know about this trail. And so now I'm going to be having to create a new thing in my apps. I'm thinking, ooh, like a month, Switzerland, 700 kilometers, high mountains.
Have to add it on.
Yeah, add it onto the list. You actually did this with Komoot, and if people visit Komoot's website and look for the Alpine Passage Trail, hiking 700 kilometers across Switzerland, all of the details and information is on there of the route that you took. Like there's a map and all. I think you've got like daily information from that.
That's
journey.
Right. So each of the stages will have like a little write-up by me. That's one of the things I love about Komoot, really, that I kind of use it as like an adventure diary. So you can build a collection, add each of the routes in there with extra information that also sort of jogs my memory of the sort of funny things that happened or the sort of challenging things that happened. But they're actually quite good for sort of passing information on to the next person who's going to walk the trail. And yeah, there's a comment feature on Komoot as well. So if you do have any questions about the route, you can just tag me in the comments, and I'll be able to sort of help out with any questions anybody has about it. But yeah, I just couldn't believe, like, we basically saw in that month's challenge, there was only one other person that we saw who was clearly on a long distance trek, and we got chatting to him, and he was the only one we saw for the whole month that was doing the same hike as us. So for some reason, it is a really sort of lesser trodden path, but it was one of the best experiences of my life, basically. So I would highly recommend it to anyone.
So one of the things that you said was obviously there's huge ascents and descents, and you're doing quite big distances, but it's about being mountain fit.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose I'd just love to know more about how do you fit fitness in? Obviously you're out all the time and exercising, but what does that look like? How are you keeping sure that you are mountain fit? Is it just running, hiking? Are you strength and conditioning? Are you doing yoga, Pilates, ballet? I'm really obsessed with ballet at the moment, but that's just random segue. Want to strengthen my ankles. But yeah, talk us through your exercise, through your fitness, what's going on there.
So yeah, most of my mountain fitness just come from just keeping hiking in the mountains, basically. And that's something I'm quite fortunate to be able to do now, being based just on the edge of the Lake District. I've got the mountains on my doorstep, and I'm very fortunate to have that. And that's the main exercise I do, is hiking. One thing I've got into more recently is park runs. Do you do park runs? Have you ever done a park run?
I've done a couple of park runs, but I'm not consistent with my running at all.
I've got quite obsessed with the park runs. So that's got me more into the running side of things. But then I am also a member of a gym as well. So I like to go and do a bit of strength and conditioning. But that's kind of like if I've got time around everything else. I've never quite got into the habit of going to the gym at set times. But I think that's also because my lifestyle doesn't really sort of meld with having a routine like that. Do you find that kind of being away a lot, and are you quite routiney when you're sort of in between challenges?
When I'm at home, I am very routiney. I really like my structure, but so that I think that's why it works well for me in terms of going away, traveling, having that flexibility, freedom, do my own thing. But then when I come home, it's like I really like it when I've got like a solid block of time at home. But I'd realised I look back I don't know necessarily when it started, but probably like end of 2021, I was pretty much doing adventures, challenges nonstop. Like as in like home, 3 weeks, next challenge. It might not be long challenges. It might be going over to the Isle of Man for for a 100-miler, then back again, then 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later doing Offers Dyke, which is like 8-9 days, and then a couple of weeks, 3 weeks later, then it was like coast to coast, and a month later. But in the interim, doing all of the editing for the podcast and all of the vlogs. So I was non-stop for, to be honest, probably like 3 and a bit years. And so when I finished the Southwest, because I hiked with James on the Southwest Coast Pass, and that was last summer. I've then been home since September last year. So September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June. So, and to be fair, I've absolutely loved it. I mean, it's just, because I'd lost all my strength training because there was no consistent. I was hiker fit and I could walk forever, but my strength training had gone. I was also starting to I was getting more injuries, especially like in my ankles. And so I love my routine when I'm home, and just being able to be consistent with it. But then I know we'll get to a point where I'm like, oh no, I need to go adventuring and traveling again. So yeah, but to be fair, like I do think the only way to keep that fitness is to be doing like long hikes all the time. When it becomes, when I say easy, I don't mean easy in an overconfident way, but just more is that your body's just so adapted that it's just like you can still
what works for you, basically. So you know what you need to do to prevent problems with your feet. You're happy with all your clothing and your camping setup, so that and your footwear and everything, and you just that you shouldn't have some of the typical problems that sort of beginner hikers have. You've overcome those challenges already, and you've found what works for you, and that only comes obviously with years worth of sort of experience and getting the miles in, kind of thing, doesn't it?
And then mentally you're able to just like go. So actually I recently did I finished the Snowdonia Slate Trail in Wales. It's this beautiful 83-mile route, really, really stunning around Snowdonia sort of national park. But by like day 2, it was like nonstop rain and wind. And then like day 3, like all my stuff was wet, like, you know, like I was dry, all my stuff was dry, but you know, my waterproofs were wet, my trainers were wet, my socks were wet, and I was having to put on wet trainers and shoes. And it's like, and I can do it because I spent 4 months in New Zealand, you know, walking with wet feet every single day. But psychologically, I was so out of practice. Like, it was literally like, oh, this is really hard. And I know it's been easy in the past, but I'd sort of like lost I sort of lost it a bit. And also with like the wild camping, you know, especially for me, you know, I'm majority of the time I'm solo by myself, and I love it, and it's absolutely amazing. But I think with wild camping, sometimes I need to get like my ear in to nature to be like, oh no, that's a normal sound. It's not, because sometimes I do have to like unzip my tent, stick my head out, to have a quick look. Oh yeah, no one's here. It's fine. Zip it back up, and you know, and you're good to go. But I know that you did your first, your first solo abroad personal challenge. So that was the first time you've gone abroad. Do you want to share more about that and sort of how that came about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've done quite a bit of sort of overseas trekking, and then a lot in the UK. But one thing I'd never done was gone overseas on my own. And I don't know why, but I had this thing, like, I don't know, that if I was overseas, that I was like really more alone than if I'd done it in the UK. Because I've done lots of sort of long distance multi-day stuff alone in the UK. So I don't know what the difference was, but I kind of just thought to myself, I just need to throw myself into a short but long distance multi-day adventure overseas. And I picked a trail called Coronallacs, which is a kind of hut-to-hut trek around the microstate of Andorra. And it was just under 100 kilometres over 5 days. And yeah, it starts in Andorra la Vella, and it's really quite easy to get to from. You sort of flew into Barcelona, where there's flights sort of 3 times, 4 times a day, and then a bus journey across the border into Andorra, where the hike starts. And then it's day-to-day, sort of hut-to-hut trekking, each walk a variety of distances. So the first walk's designed to sort of be more like a half day. It's about 13 kilometres. And then the others are somewhere between sort of 17 kilometres and 23 kilometres. But again, it's similar to the Alpine passes trail in that you've got big passes to go over every day. And each day there was at least 1,000 metres of ascent. So again, it ticked all my sort of boxes of wanting to get high and get really good views. But one of the things I loved about it is that it did help me to sort of switch off and really connect with nature and not have any distractions, and in that kind of walking alone and just feeling quite comfortable in my own company. But it actually really sort of heightened my enjoyment of the overnight hut element, because you had people then that were hiking different trails to you. So, for example, the route sort of dissected the hut route across the Pyrenees. So people were staying in the same hut as me that were doing those sort of bigger challenges with lots of stories to tell. People from all countries all over the world coming together, eating together, sharing stories, laughing. I actually really enjoyed those, where I know if I'd done it with my own little group of friends or my own partner, I don't think I would have been as sort of as open to chatting to everybody, if you know what I mean, as closeness as we ended up becoming in just those few hours. So it's kind of like a different experience doing it on your own. So if you've got any listeners who are thinking, oh, well, I've done that, but I've done it with like groups of people or with partner and stuff, I think it's a great idea to just sort of push out of your comfort zone a little bit and try something solo and just see how that feels, because that's just something I'd just never really sort of done a lot of before.
When you're by yourself and then you're meeting other people, if you are by yourself, 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to make more of an effort. And I know I can be quite lazy if I'm walking with somebody else. And sometimes I walk with very chatty people, which is awesome. I love it. I'm also very chatty most of the time. But sometimes it's like, I can't talk anymore, which I know people will be surprised at. And it's lovely when you've got somebody else there who can make the conversation, who can, you know, do all the things that sometimes you can be too tired to end up doing. But I suppose finishing that walk, looking back, I mean, are you going to go on more solo walks?
Yeah, I think I would. Yeah, I would definitely do more. And thanks to my partner James walking the Southwest Coast Path alone, but then ended up walking a good chunk of it with you last year, that I've got the whole of the South West Coast Path to come now because he raved about it, you've raved about it.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, well, I've got to do it. So I will most likely walk Southwest Coast Path alone.
But do you know, it's honestly fantastic. It is up there with one of the best hikes. And I'm comparing to like New Zealand, New Zealand Caminos, Appalachian Trail and stuff. The Southwest Coast Path literally ticked every box. Like adventure, resupply, opportunities for wild camping, amazing people, like cute ponies and butterflies. They're probably worse than cows there. But, you know, just ice cream, pubs. It was just, you could be in the wilderness, but going through these little coastal towns, you had like history. There was just so I mean, I'm still editing the vlogs, so you'll soon be able to actually watch the adventure when I finally get round when I get round to finally editing it. Well, future plans, like what are you hoping?
We're going to end up talking about Tero again, because I remember very early days, I was like, I really want to do Tero. I didn't do it straight after the first Munro round in 2019. And I'm glad I didn't, because we'd have been kicked out of the country towards the end of it because of COVID. So sort of dodged a bullet a bit by not doing it in that season, which I didn't originally plan to. And then still, it's sort of teased me every single year.
Yeah.
With, you haven't done me yet. You haven't done me yet. And then I remember we spoke about it and you said it was on your list as well. And then you did do it. So now I need to watch all of your vlogs for the South Island, because I think there's a chance I might do the South Island next year.
Oh, and you know what? That would be the best part of it.
And now I've heard you talk about this. I think it was on your last sort of 6-monthly wrap podcast that you did in the winter time, where I'm pretty sure you mentioned that you didn't like the North Island as much as you did the South. And that's sort of cemented in my mind that the South is up my street more than the North. And I think I'm just going to go for the South Island.
I honestly think you should. Like, it's just like the Tiara, like the ranges and stuff like that. Like if you like the Alpine passes and, you know, walking in Andorra, like some of the mountains in New Zealand, like, you know, going from hut to hut to hut, the hut system in the South Island is absolutely phenomenal. Like, I think you will get so much pleasure, so much enjoyment. And then if you started in Bluff, you know, at the very, very bottom of the South Island and made it all the way up to Picton, which is the very top of the South Island, I think you would have the most amazing time. And this is not, I mean, I would still, you know, if you want to do the full thing, go for it. The North Island is very different.
Yeah. I think you have to go north to south, because I think it would be, can you imagine doing it the South Island first and then the North Island? I think that wouldn't be the right way around to do it, would it? So,
well, the only way you do it that way is if you it depends on the time of year that you can get away.
To set off, yeah.
If you can only get away, say in January, because I mean, who wants to be in the UK in January and February? Then starting that in New Zealand, going that way, that's your only option.
Yeah.
Depending on how fast. Otherwise, it's like November at the very top of Cape Reinga, and then going down. But did you not? You're gonna have an amazing time, whatever. And you might also be better at road walking than I was, because I was just like, this is not why I walk. I do not.
Yeah, I know. It's like, I don't mind a bit of road walking here and there, but if it starts to get into the like percent, it's like looking at the percentage ratio that you're doing it, and if it's too, you know, high an amount of road walking, I would start to get a bit frustrated with that, I think.
It mentally messed with my head, because you're literally like, because I don't mind it then. It's like another 25k on roads. Oh, 25k on, this is a gravel road. Oh, this one's got dust. Oh, no, this is a major highway with double lorries coming by. I do not feel safe. Like, this is scary. But you know, sorry, I could go. I'll get off my. But if people do want to learn more about Tiara, thank you for bringing it up. There are videos to watch on the Tough Girl YouTube channel. There's loads of all of the stats, how much I spent, how many days walking, my views. There's a planning and preparation episode I did before and another solo episode that I did after. But do you know what? I love this. Like, yeah, if you've got a dream, if you've got an itch, go and get Komoot to sponsor you. That would be fantastic. Like, that will be for the win. But you do need to get a PLB. You do need a tracker.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Did you have a tracker in Switzerland?
I have got one. Yeah, I've got a Garmin InReach Mini.
Oh, we don't talk about Garmin. If it's not Zoleo, don't mention it.
Zoleo. Sorry.
James will have the Zoleo.
James has got a Zoleo. And so we can take the Zoleo down to New Zealand. But no, we need to you need something like that because the backcountry is really, really quite vast, isn't it? I think there's one stretch on the South Island where you could be, if the rivers aren't playing ball, you could be sort of out for
2 weeks.
Coming up to 2 weeks. Yeah.
And so it's very nice different as well. Like, but you'll be amazing. Like, you'll absolutely love it. But you know what I was just thinking as well is with your last walk, Coronallacs, I think you said it was. I mean, I probably butchered that, but that's like a great training hike. Like the fact that you can cheeky fly over to Barcelona, bus it, and then 5 days, 100 kilometers in the mountain. Like 5 days is like, it's chunky, but great training. Like I'm just going to have to open another app on my phone and find out about this trail because that's a gorgeous thing. If you've only got like a week and you do want, especially like, I mean, I do love walking, but Wales, it was raining, it was grey, it was just like, it was cold. If I just needed some sunshine for a week, then that would definitely be a trail that I'd be looking at. And Nick, absolutely. You are on social media. Where are you most active? How can people follow along with all your future adventures and challenges? And keep your fingers crossed they'll be in New Zealand because it'd be awesome to follow you there. But where should they go? That
would be at adventurer.nick on Instagram. That's the main platform I'm on. I never bother really telling people about the other ones because I'm not that active on Facebook and X or anything like that. I've got a website, adventurernick.com, that I post some routes to as well, although I'm a little bit behind on keeping that up to date. But you can only keep so many plates spinning at once, can't you? And that's had to sort of take a back seat while I've been working on the book. So yeah, Instagram's my go-to.
I found a piece of paper in my wardrobe of so I have like a resources section and I wanted to add in like more information for each of the resources section so it could really add value. This has been something I've been working on for the past 5 years. And it's like, it hasn't really moved. Like I've added one to like one. So yeah, sometimes it just doesn't. Yeah, it can be hard to keep these things up. And also you've been working on your phenomenal guidebook and just, trying to get that out and published, which you have done. So massive congratulations on the new book. I will be sharing all of the links so that all of our peak baggers can get out there and start climbing the Munros in Scotland. But Nick, I'd love for you to have the final words of advice, final words of wisdom for other women out there who want to stretch outside their comfort zone, who want to take on more challenges. Apart from just do it, what advice would you like to share?
I think it's just about getting out there and finding your community. So I think I got into the outdoors by meeting people. First, it was through work, and then it was through social media, just finding those like-minded people to hike with, to then learn from, but then also to not just to learn from, but to buzz off as well, like get that real excitement going and find out what works for you. Try lots of things in the outdoor space. And then really just pour your heart into the thing that makes your soul sing. For me, that's hiking. For other people, that might be things on water, climbing, any of those sort of outdoor pursuits. But yeah, find what you love and then go at it and throw yourself into it. Dive in head first, basically, and you never know where it might lead. For me, it's led to writing a guidebook, which I never. If you'd have said to me 5 years ago, "Oh, you'll have a guidebook to your name," I would have literally laughed and said you were lying because there's never something I thought I would do. But here I am, really proud of having produced this guide. So yeah, and that's just come from a love for the outdoors and just throwing myself into it. So yeah, jump in head first.
Jump in head first. Nick, thank you so much for jumping in head first and massive congratulations on the new book. And I'm excited to follow along with all your future adventures and challenges.
Thank you very much.
Hey, tribe. How you're doing? It's Sarah, the host of the Tough Girl podcast. I really hope you enjoyed the episode with Nick Hardy. I always love catching up with our previous Tough Girls, I just find it fascinating to see what they've been up to since, we first had them on the Tough Girl podcast. So like I mentioned at the start, we first had Nick on the podcast on March 31st, 2022. So please do go check out that episode if you haven't already, and you'll learn more about her early years and also climbing all 282 of Scotland Munros. And now she's written a guidebook about it. How epic is that? So one of the things that came up during the podcast is we talked about the Southwest Coast Path. And as you know, I walked the Southwest Coast Path in 2024, the summer of 2024, which OMG seems like forever ago. And I have still not edited the vlogs from that time period. Now, unless maybe on a previous ending, I might have shared, go watch the vlogs of the Southwest Coast Path. Yeah, I haven't edited them yet. And to be honest, I don't quite know when I'm going to get time to do them because I'm going to be away all of August, back mid-September. Then as soon as I come back in September, I'm back right into interviewing women for the Tough Girl podcast to take me through to the end of the year. And then I need to edit them. So that's suddenly that's all of October gone. Then I also need to edit the footage from the GR10. And we're also trying to put a film together with that footage as well. So that's the end of the year. So beginning of January, then I'll need to edit podcast interviews for January, February, March, and then edit them. So that's all of February. So I might get around to editing. This is ridiculous, isn't it? Get it round to editing the Southwest Coast Path vlogs in March 2026. Fingers crossed. So that is just something to look forward to. That's something that will happen in the future. But thank you so much for listening to the Tough Girl podcast. If you're brand new to the podcast, then please visit toughgirlchallenges.com. Loads more information on the website. There's more information about me, the different adventures and challenges I've done, the previous guests that we've had. Tough Girl Extra is where we catch up with previous guests. We do sort of like a bonus episode. There's a lot. I think there's over 100 Tough Girl podcast extra episodes, which is pretty awesome. We are coming up to the 800 episodes. The 800th episode is actually going to happen on the 4th of August, 2025, which is pretty mega. 800, that is a huge number. There are 800 episodes to listen to. And a big shout out to all the incredible patrons who have been supporting this work, because it is work, but what an incredible job to share these stories of women just following their dreams and passions and motivating and inspiring you to go after your dreams and passions. If you'd like to pay it forward, then please visit Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast, and you can sign up as a weekly patron. A month? No, you can't sign up as a weekly patron. I mean, you can via PayPal, but you can sign up as a monthly patron or an annual patron. Just want to do a massive shout out to a brand new patron that we have on the Tough Girl podcast. Sorry, not a brand new patron, an existing patron who has edited their membership and increased it from £2.50 to £12.50, which is amazing. Hayley Perry Nichols, thank you so much. That was such a nice surprise to receive when the email drops into my inbox. I'm like, oh, that is absolutely awesome. So I really do appreciate it. As you know, just editing and keeping the podcast coming out every single week is hard work, but I love it. I get to do it. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for telling your friends. Thank you so much for sharing on social media. Thank you for writing reviews. It's just incredible what we are achieving and the stories that we are sharing. So go and visit toughgirlchallenges.com. Go and visit Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. All that's left for me to say is, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, give it your all, give it 110%, get after it, go for it, believe in yourself, because I believe in you. Take care, lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.